Aquarius. Maybe you've already felt it. A very subtle shift, but enough to make you pause just a little longer inside your own thoughts. On the outside, everything seems the same routines, the same familiar rhythm of your days. But inside, something is moving, not clear, not something you can name right away. Just a feeling that gently changes the way you see things. Like walking down a street you've known for years, and suddenly realizing you're not the same person who walked there yesterday, and somewhere within that very ordinary flow of life, you may begin to notice a presence, a connection, or even just a quiet emotion, becoming a little more visible in its own unique way. There's no need to rush to understand what it is, just stay with it long enough, and you might start to sense what has been quietly forming all along. There are days that pass without anything truly standing out. You still wake up at the same familiar hour, walk the same roads, hear the same sounds you've heard so many times before. And then, in a very small moment, maybe when the light softly touches your window, or when you pause just a little longer over something that once felt ordinary, you begin to notice something inside you has shifted. Not clearly, not enough to call it a turning point, but enough to feel like something is no longer the same. Aquarius. That feeling isn't here to confuse you. It's not here to demand that you understand it right away. It's more like a gentle breeze. You can't see it, but you know it's there, just by the way it feels. Well, and maybe what makes you pause isn't the change itself, but the moment you become aware of it. Before, you might have moved through moments like this without even noticing. Things came and went as quickly as a day fades into night. But now, you stay a little longer inside your own experience. You look closer, you feel deeper. You listen to yourself more clearly, not because the world around you has changed that much, but because the way you are present in it has. You may start to notice that you don't react the same way anymore. Things that once rushed you now slow you down. Things that once weighed on you no longer carry the same weight, not because they disappeared, but because you're seeing them from a different place within yourself. And within that subtle shift, a new kind of space begins to open. It's not a space of emptiness, but a space of readiness, ready to feel what you once overlooked, ready to notice what never felt clear before. And maybe, within that quiet space, something is gently taking shape. There's no need to name it too soon, no need to understand it right away, because some things, when you try to grasp them too early, lose the very nature that made them real. But when you simply remain, observing, feeling, allowing, you begin to sense that everything is moving in its own rhythm, a rhythm that isn't loud, that doesn't push, that doesn't need validation from the outside, just a very soft current, yet real enough that you can't ignore it. And maybe what matters most isn't what is arriving, but the way you are becoming ready to receive it, not through urgency, not through expectation, but through a deep kind of stillness, where you begin to trust that not everything meaningful needs to be explained right away. And if you stay there long enough, you may start to feel that something very quietly is beginning. Not everyone enters your life in a way that immediately captures your attention. Not every first glance carries something unforgettable. Not every conversation leaves a clear echo behind. Some people arrive very gently. So gently that if you don't slow down enough, you might pass by them the same way you pass by so many other things in life. They don't try to stand out. They don't try to impress. They don't make you feel like you have to respond right away. They're just there. In a conversation that isn't too long, where neither of you needs to say too much. In a brief moment of eye contact, without urgency, without a clear intention, or sometimes just the quiet sense that someone is present, in a way that feels completely ordinary, yet enough for you to realize you're not entirely alone. Aquarius, you're used to keeping a certain distance from the world. You observe more than you step in, you think more than you express, and you only truly open up when something feels meaningful to you. So, not every connection can reach you. But this time, something feels different. Not because this person is doing anything extraordinary, but because their presence doesn't make you guard yourself. It doesn't make you try to become a more acceptable version of who you are. It doesn't make you wonder what you should say next. It's just, you get to be yourself more naturally than you expected. And somehow, that becomes noticeable. Not loud. Not clearly defined. But enough for you to realize you want to stay a little longer. At first, you may not even try to name it. You just don't feel the need to leave too quickly. You let the conversation linger a few minutes more. You let a moment move a little slower than usual. You let their presence stay in your thoughts a little longer after everything ends. And over time, something begins to take shape. Not an overwhelming emotion, not a dramatic shift, but a feeling of steadiness. Like finding a place where you don't have to explain yourself too much. A place where silence doesn't feel heavy. A place where you don't feel like you're trying. Aquarius. Maybe you once believed that a connection needed clarity, a definition, a direction. But some connections don't unfold that way. They don't begin with promises. If they aren't shaped by expectations, they simply exist. And in that way of existing, there's a depth that feels entirely its own. Not because it's complicated, but because it's real. Because in this person's presence, you don't have to become someone else. You don't have to be better, stronger, or more perfect. You just need to be you. And maybe that's what makes you pause. Not because they're obviously special, but because of how they allow you to come back closer to yourself. And as you begin to notice that, you may also begin to see something else. That some connections don't need to rush to become deep. They only need to be real enough for you to want to stay. And then, at some point, you begin to notice that you're no longer chasing things the way you used to. You're no longer trying to find a clear answer for every emotion. No longer rushing to define a connection the moment it appears. There was a time when you wanted to understand everything. Why someone entered your life. How long they would stay. What it all meant in a bigger picture. You tried to piece everything together, as if understanding enough would finally bring you peace. But over time, something inside you began to soften. Not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you're starting to realize not everything needs to be explained to have meaning. Some things, the more you try to hold on to them, the more they slip into something unclear. And some feelings, when you simply let them be, they become clear in their own quiet way. Aquarius. You're someone who naturally seeks depth. You don't easily accept what feels uncertain. You want to know where you stand in a connection. But lately, you may have started to allow yourself to not know everything. Not because you've given up, but because you're choosing to trust your own experience. You begin to stay a little longer with a moment. Without rushing to name it, you begin to listen to your emotions, without needing to analyze them right away. You begin to allow a connection to exist, without needing to know where it's going. And within that very subtle shift, it feels like another door has quietly opened. Not loud, not obvious, but enough for you to feel. You're becoming more open. Not the kind of openness that comes from something missing, not the kind that's searching to be filled, but a quiet readiness to receive something new if it comes. As you're no longer searching the way you once did, no longer trying to create a connection. And yet, in not searching, you begin to see more. You notice the small details you might have once overlooked. A glance, a pause, a feeling so light, yet carrying a quiet depth. You begin to understand a connection doesn't need to begin with clarity to be real, and it doesn't need a defined future to have value. Aquarius. Some things in life don't come to be understood right away. They come to be felt, to be experienced, to be lived in, long enough for you to recognize what feels true to you. And maybe this very shift, the fact that you're no longer rushing to search, is exactly what's making you more ready than ever before. Ready for something that wasn't planned. Ready for a connection that doesn't need to be defined right away. Not to fill a space, but to simply exist, gently and honestly enough that you don't have to try. And as you begin to open up in your own quiet way, you may start to notice something else, that not everything meaningful needs to be spoken. Not every connection needs long conversations. Not every feeling has to be clearly expressed to matter. Some things exist in the silence, silences that don't make you feel pressured to fill them. No need to search for the right words. No need to keep the conversation going. It's just two people there, not too close, not too far, but enough for you to feel you don't have to become someone else. Aquarius, you understand what it means to keep your distance. You're used to observing before stepping in, used to holding back a part of yourself, so you don't get hurt too easily. You've chosen the safety of your own space more than once, instead of stepping into a connection you weren't sure about. And that was never wrong. It was your way of protecting what matters to you, your way of keeping your inner world intact. But this time, something feels different. Not a push, not a pull, just a presence. Gentle enough that you don't feel the need to step back. You don't have to build your usual walls. You don't have to manage every distance. You don't have to calculate whether to move forward or stay still. Because for the first time in a long while, you realize you can stay and still feel safe. And in a very natural way, that begins to shift how you see connection. It's no longer something that needs to be tightly controlled, no longer something that has to be understood right away, but a space where you can breathe a little easier, where you don't have to explain too much, where you don't have to prove anything. Just be there and let things unfold as they are. And you may begin to notice that these quiet moments are where your feelings become the clearest. Not because they're intense, but because they're real. No exaggeration, no effort, just a connection felt from within. Aquarius. Some things in life don't need to be held on to. They only need you not to push them away. And maybe what's hardest isn't opening your heart completely, but allowing something to stay long enough for you to recognize its value, not through logic, not through analysis, but through a very honest feeling that you don't have to try so hard to feel like you're in the right place. And when you begin to allow that, you may start to understand. Not every connection needs to be controlled. Some things just need to be allowed, and that alone is enough to make them deep. And then, when you've stayed long enough in that quiet space, something very subtle begins to happen. You no longer feel the need to resist. You no longer ask yourself whether you should move closer or keep your distance. You no longer weigh every single feeling the way you used to. Everything starts to feel lighter. Not because you suddenly have the answers, but because you no longer need an answer right away. Aquarius, you've been used to keeping your heart in a safe place. Not easy for someone to reach. Not easy to let something in without control. But this time, you may begin to notice your heart isn't responding the same way anymore. It doesn't close off as quickly. It doesn't rush to build invisible boundaries. Instead, you begin to listen. You listen to how you feel when you're around someone. You notice the smallest shifts inside you. You sense the things that aren't spoken, but are still there. And what's different is, you don't rush to analyze those feelings. You don't hurry to ask, what does this mean? You don't need to know where it's going. You just let it be. Like sitting by a window on a quiet afternoon, doing nothing, just watching the light change minute by minute. No need to explain, no need to hold on to it, just feel. And in that presence, you begin to notice the smallest changes. You smile more, not for a clear reason, but because a thought of someone briefly passes through your mind. You feel a softness within you, in moments that once felt empty. And not because someone came to fill that space, but because their presence doesn't add pressure to who you are. They don't make you become better. They don't make you try harder. They don't make you change to fit. And maybe that's what matters. Because for the first time in a long while, you realize a connection can exist without taking you away from yourself. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to hide the parts of you once thought were too much. You don't have to adjust just to be accepted. You only need to be you. And in a very natural way, Your heart begins to open just a little more, not all at once, not with full trust, but with a quiet readiness, enough that you're no longer pushing away what you feel. Aquarius. Some things in life don't need to be forced to grow. They can unfold in their own way. No need to rush into decisions. No need to define right or wrong. They only need something very simple, that you allow yourself to listen to your heart when it's no longer covered by fear, to listen to your emotions without overanalyzing them. And maybe, if you listen long enough, you'll begin to understand. The value of a connection isn't in where it leads, but in the way it allows you to feel more at peace with yourself, right here, in this moment. And when you've moved through all these layers of feeling, you may begin to realize, not every story starts with a clear sign. There isn't always a moment big enough to call it a beginning. There isn't always a sentence certain enough to call it confirmation. Sometimes, it's just a feeling, hard to name, light to hold, and yet, real enough that you can't ignore it. Aquarius. You may be used to needing clarity before you move forward. You want to understand what's happening. You want to know where you stand. You want to be sure you're not stepping into something too uncertain. But this time, things may not come that way. No map, no definition from the start. Just something that makes you want to stay a little longer. Not because you know what it will become, but because, within it, you don't feel the need to leave. You may begin to notice you're no longer rushing to find answers, no longer needing to name every feeling, no longer asking, "What is this?" right away. You just stay. Inside a moment that feels real enough that you don't need to explain it. Inside a connection light enough that it doesn't pressure you. Inside a feeling deep enough to remind you, some things don't need clarity to have meaning. And maybe, what's most beautiful isn't where this connection is going, but how it arrives, without urgency, without display, without trying to be something big. Just a presence that feels real, something that doesn't take you away from yourself, doesn't ask you to change to fit, doesn't make you hold on too tightly. It simply stays and lets you be yourself within it. Aquarius. Some beginnings in life aren't meant to be recognized right away. They don't need a name. They don't need a definition. They only need something very small, that you slow down enough to feel them. And if you've come this far, if you've stayed with your feelings long enough, you may begin to understand. What's arriving isn't an answer. It isn't a promise. It's an experience light enough that it doesn't scare you, real enough that you don't want to walk away, and deep enough to remind you, not everything meaningful needs to be defined right away. Sometimes, just allowing yourself to remain in that feeling a little longer is already enough. And if there's one thing you carry with you after all of this, maybe it's simply this. You don't have to rush. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to be certain. Just keep moving forward with a quiet and honest listening to yourself. The rest will find its way.